Good morning, Warren. How are you? How's it going?
Going really good. Just came off a call with a school, so yeah, feeling.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
It
How are
is.
you?
I'm brilliant. It is an absolute pleasure to have you here.
Thank you.
And just for everybody watching, a few weeks ago, I was so blessed to come across you, Warren. And I was just racking my brains there. I can't actually really remember how we connected.
Do
Like
you know
what?
what? I think it was on a self-development book page, I believe.
Yes, it must have been. Must
Yeah.
have been for sure. So I was so delighted then to hear that you had a book just coming out. And I was like, there's synchronicities here between obviously my book club and what you're up to. And I got my hands on it. And obviously I've read every single word of it.
Wow.
And I knew that I had to get you on and have a chat about it. So welcome. Thank you so much for
Thank you.
being here.
I feel privileged, Richard.
So tell me, first of all, I've a whole load of questions like really about the book, but I want to just hear about you. Like, what are you up to at the minute? And how did this all start? Like, how did the journey start?
Okay, so I've had to change what I do dramatically because of the pandemic and lockdown. That's
Yeah.
why the book's here, I believe, because 6 years ago, the idea of publishing my book, like the idea of what I wanted to put in the book, it came about 6 years ago. But because I was doing events and seminars and I was always busy out there doing things, I kind of put it on the back burner. So during the lockdown, I had time, like we've all got, but like we've all had, I've had time to just sit down and to really plan out this book and publish this book. So yeah, it's been like I think like the lockdown's been a blessing and a curse, but it's helped me to be able to launch the book that I've been wanting to get out for the last 6 years.
So I have to admit, that's one of the things I was most impressed by whenever I started reading the book and you started mentioning the pandemic. Then I was like, wow, this has only been written like really recently. So to get a book, like to start a book, publish a book, all within less than a year, like that's really impressive to begin with.
Do you know what? I had the book in my head. I think because I had the book in my head, I knew what I wanted to put in my head. I just needed to get it out on paper. So I think I did it within 2.5 weeks. It's correct. Like it seems like a short period of time, but I'm seeing it as the whole idea of what I was going to put in the book, the chapters. It was just literally getting it from my head onto the computer. And and I think I got overwhelmed a little bit as well because sometimes when you read great books like Think and Grow Rich and How to Win Friends and Influence People, you want your first book to be that bestseller. You want your book to be perfect, and I think that kind of got in my way a little bit. So the 2 week gap of me just literally getting out onto the computer was me saying, get the ego out the way and just literally get this book out there to the world because it's going to
Right.
help a lot of lives.
And there's a whole other subject there where I'm sure you will help a lot of people write books because that story in itself is inspirational. Never mind the content of the book, which we're going to talk about more. So that in itself, like, is really inspiring. That a book can be done in that space of time. It's great.
Yes, they're definitely. I feel like when you put your mind to something and you put a deadline. I think if I didn't put a deadline because I was like I want to be able to get this published by the 1st of January, and I put it out there, and I was like, it scared me a little bit when I first said it. I was like, oh, that's so close, but it made me get it done. I think in the past when I've tried getting the book out there, I didn't put a deadline on it. So I think when you put a deadline on something, and yeah, it holds you accountable to kind
Brilliant.
of.
So you're definitely walking your talk there, because obviously in the book there's a bit about that, about creating the why, like why am I doing this, the goals, everything around that. So that's brilliant.
Definitely.
So I want to be honest with you. So I think when I read the first part of the book, your introduction, I think I had, now this is my excuse anyway, I
Yeah.
had some quite emotional music in the background.
Hmm.
I was listening to some like classical music and stuff, and I felt really emotional. Honestly, I found that first part of the book, your upbringing, everything, really, really emotional. So obviously, I'd really encourage people to go and read the book. But could you just give us like a little snapshot of that? Tell us a bit about that. Like what kind of the things that you overcame, let's say.
Yeah, so I grew up in Oxford. It's funny because when I talk about Oxford, like people kind of they're expecting me to have this really tough story upbringing, and I say I come from Oxford, and they're like, "What? What do people throw dictionaries at you or something?" But yeah, no, I came from a very deprived part of Oxford. My mum came from like a very sort of traditional um, Southern Irish background. So my whole grandparents are from Kilkenny in Ireland,
Oh, brilliant.
and
I didn't realize with that connection. Brilliant. That's cool.
yeah. So,
Yeah.
but they were very kind of strict and kind of they wanted my mum to be with like a Catholic man, and my mum didn't kind of do that. So she went with a Jamaican man, and it kind of like she kind of became like a bit of an outcast in her family. So as a kid, I remember we were living in bed and breakfasts. Like me and my mum were living in bed and breakfasts, and then my mum kind of got into relationships, volatile relationships, and so as a kid, I witnessed a lot of domestic abuse, seeing my mum being abused in front of me, and feeling helpless. I remember just as a kid, just feeling helpless. No matter how much I cried, it just wouldn't stop the situation. And then police, and then my mum got it through into. My mum got depressed and went through, spiraled out of control. And the only thing that helped her to kind of suppress all of this was drugs. So I witnessed my mum going through the gateway drug, which was weed at the time, and thinking like that's okay because everyone in my state smokes weed, so that can't kill you. That's fine. But then that was the gateway drug, and I saw it. I saw her getting like a new high, and it went through, yeah, up to class A drugs such as crack cocaine and heroin. So I remember going to school as a 7-year-old, coming home and finding like crack pipes in my living room, and in my young mind at the time, I thought if I broke this pipe, my mum wouldn't be able to smoke, wouldn't be able to do drugs. And so it was a vicious cycle. It was a cycle of just coming home, finding these different pipes all around my house, and just trying to save my mum's life because I knew that crack, cocaine, and heroin could kill my mum. And then in that moment, my mum got so deep into it that she couldn't look after us anymore. So there was neglect, and I was living. I'd had to be the man of the house at such a young age, to one younger brother and two younger sisters, and I had to play dad, and I had to shoplift to get food, and it was we didn't have food. Like, I remember eating tomato ketchup sandwiches and just having to ask neighbors for food, and just being hungry, going to bed with like an empty stomach, and then yeah, it was neglect, because my mum was so caught up with drugs. Like that was she was that's how I see it now, as an illness. So when I went into foster care, um, it was always like we were quite a bit of terrors growing up. So we used to always get kicked out of different foster care homes, and I remember just learning how to fit in and how to kind of shut up and impress so that we could stay longer. And that's what I learned. And I learned that we got treated differently as a care. Being in care, you get treated differently. Like you're an outcast or you're not a normal child. And that was my goal. My goal was to be a normal child. I wanted to fit in. So I learned from a young age how to fit in, how to impress people. And I think from that, the miracle, when I was 13 years old, my mum went into a rehab, and she went through the whole program, went to court. So many solicitors turned her down because they're like, "What? You're fighting a lost cause. You're not going to get your kids back." And this one there was one solicitor, Paul Foster, said, "Maggie, I'll get your kids back for you." And she won the court case when I was 13. So that then was literally like all my birthdays and Christmases put in one. My mum was completely transformed. She was a mother figure again. And it's such a difference when drugs is not a part of the situation. Like she completely became just this whole new mum. So I moved from Oxford to Bristol, and then living in Bristol again, I didn't want to tell people that I was in care. I wanted to make this lie up that as a kid I went to Disneyland not once but twice,
Yeah.
and I became like I wanted to be the cool kid, and I loved approval. I loved people liking me. Like it was just like a drug because I didn't like myself, and I suppressed.
I can so identify with that, definitely, for sure.
Yeah, so I craved it because I was empty from within, because I believed, my belief said I was broken. My belief said I wasn't worthy because then my dad's not in my life, and what I've been through, I'm a care leaver, and all of these beliefs that were self-sabotaging, that were creating me to have this negative image of myself. So I had to just keep being someone I wasn't. And then when I was 16, made it as a got through to Bristol Rovers Football Academy, and that was my ultimate dream. That's what kept me on the straight and narrow. That's what stopped me from getting a criminal record. That's what stopped me from being a statistic. Was regardless of your gender, ethnicity, where you come from, if you were good enough, you could make it, and that could bring. Like, it wasn't even for. I love football, but it wasn't just playing football. It was the finances from that I was going to be able to give my family and a life that I never had, and also to build schools in Africa and to help children that have gone through similar situations as myself. Like, that was my purpose at the time.
Yeah.
And then when I was 19, I remember like it's like a ball. If you push a ball into underwater, and the more you push it, the more pressure it builds. And that was me just hiding who I really was. And I kept pushing it deeper and deeper until when I got released, that just opened like a can of worms, and everything from my past all came out at once. And when it all came out, I was like, fuck, like I was like, shit, like my whole, like, what's the point? Why the hell do I have, like, I got angry with God. I was like, God, why have I been through all of this to end up like this? I don't get it. I don't get it. What is this? Why am I here for? And I felt broken. I felt rock bottom. I couldn't see a way out of this. I was going through depression and anxiety in my room in Oxford, living on my own. And I started, like, it got crazy. I started questioning reality, my hygiene, everything. I just neglected it all.
And
I'd given up.
did you get into substances yourself then at that time?
No. Like, you know what? It's crazy. Ever since I've seen my mum OD in front of me, I've seen my mum. I've seen the devastation of what drugs has done. So one, I despise drugs, and two, it kind of scares me. I'm not gonna lie. No matter how bad I don't like being out of the state of being in control almost.
Yeah.
So kind of like,
Get it? Yeah.
yeah. So but I got to a place where I was just I just stayed at home, and I was like very just sleep. I slept so much,
Yeah.
and then it got to a point I went to the doctors because I thought I was having a heart attack because I had anxiety and some panic attacks. I thought my heart was beating funny, so I was like, I need to go to the doctors to check what this is about, and expect them to say like, okay, you need to take this medication for your heart or whatever. They were like, it's depression and anxiety, and we're going to just prescribe you some drugs. And again, that word drug, I just like, I saw my mum going through it. So my own experience, I was like, I need to be dependent on me. I need to find another way out of this, a holistic way. I need to find, if I can't do that, I don't want to be here. Like, that was my belief at the time. I was like, I don't want to be here. If I can't find another way, I don't want to be dependent on a drug. I hate drugs. And that was my own belief at the time. And I remember just feeling like, just like, I cried loads that night. And that's where the magic happened. A few days after that, I get a phone call, and it's from America, and it's a guy that a job that I applied for a year beforehand, but I didn't get it because I didn't have my FA level 2.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, someone's dropped out at the last minute. Do you want to take this opportunity? And I knew in my soul, I knew that was a sign.
Mm-hmm.
And the money that I had in my bank account was enough for my US visa and my plane tickets.
So I've a couple of questions. So we actually, I've realized we've got a bit in common here. So especially around the drugs. So in terms of personal use, So
Yeah.
I was always really scared of drugs too. And the reason for that is because I've always been really sensitive to things. Now, alcohol, different story. Alcohol was my drug.
Yeah.
Like big time was my drug. But I've never, ever taken a drug in my life. I've smoked a tiny bit of weed, but I've never taken it. And as well, whenever I had mental health issues, exactly the same thing. I did not want to take medication. And exactly what you said, I felt that I was defeated. If I was relying on a pill, I was like, no, I need to get to the root cause of this. I don't want to put a band-aid on and, just go about life with a band-aid on. I want to get the wound healed, if you know what I mean.
Definitely,
So
100%.
a lot in common there. And then also, and I want to ask you about this. So I also went to work in the States as well. And
Right.
I absolutely loved it. And one of the reasons that I loved it is because of their openness to personal development. How
Yeah.
did you find that?
I love that you just said that, because that's exactly it. When I first got into personal development in the US, it was like a film. I'm not gonna lie. Like, America as you watch it in Hollywood and then you go over there, it is kind of the same sort of deal. When I went over there and everyone had coaches, people were reading books, self-help books.
Yeah.
And I remember watching this video on YouTube when I was in America as well, because I wanted to get kind of fit. I wanted to go start training and stuff. And this guy was on stage and he's speaking openly about his story, about his mum being on drugs and stuff. And I'm thinking like, no, you don't share that. But like, he had a different swagger. He had a different, like, you almost felt, not almost, he did. He felt proud of where he came from. And I was a bit like, I was ashamed of where I came from. That was the root cause of my depression and what I've been through. But it was just like an eye-opening moment where like, just how open they are to it, how positive they are as well. And it is that whole, like, the land of dreams or whatever. I think they just see, they're more based on solutions than they are focused on their problems over there, I believe.
Yeah, I love it. So yeah, I went there as a sailing instructor. Actually, it was an American company. We did most of our stuff down in the Caribbean, but very similar to that. You know, the kids would arrive, and the next thing, like, we're sitting around in the evening, and everybody's like talking about their challenges at home, and I was like, this was so alien to me. And there was a few British Irish people came over as instructors, and it was so interesting. Some of us really bought into it. I bought into it because I think, looking back, honestly, I think I needed it myself, you know, because of my kind of past and stuff. But some of the other guys, they were, you know, a bit more British about it. Then they were like, we can't take this, you know, and they didn't buy into it. It was too open. It was too, there was too kind of touchy feely, for want of a better expression. But I
Yeah,
absolutely loved that, and it's what I needed. And it sounds like that's exactly what you needed as well.
it was, you know, I feel like going to a new country, it distracted me from my own problems. My conscious mind was alert and I was seeing in new surroundings. So that actually gave me the strength and energy and time to work on my subconscious and to work on the beliefs that I had at the time.
And what happened then? Did you stay there for a while, coaching and things? And
Yeah, so I stayed there for over a year. I went to over 18 different states, stayed with 17 different families, and it yeah, it just opened my mind to this whole, because I think soccer, as they call it in America, is quite, it's quite a, people that do it are kind of come from like wealthy backgrounds. So I was living in these big townhouses, these big mansions and stuff. I was just like, whoa, they had chefs. I remember going in the kitchen and be like, hey Warren, what you want for breakfast? And I was training at the time, and they're like, I was like, something high in protein, and they're like, 20 minutes later, he comes in with like this salmon fillet. You're like, hey, there's 18.5 protein, 18.5 grams of protein in this Warren, you're gonna love it. And I remember just like being like, my mind just blown by this whole new world of like,
yeah.
like clapping and lights coming on and all of this stuff. It just showed me what was possible. So yeah, the experience was absolutely incredible, just amazing. And just I went from kind of like having a story of just living in a terraced house and having a safe, secure job, but that was the dream, to, oh my God, breaking through this glass window and actually saying, you know what, you can achieve so much more. And I don't just mean materialistic things. I just mean like just the quality of life, time, and yeah.
And did you, one thing that so very similar again, a lot of the kids that I taught sailing, very wealthy backgrounds. And similarly to you, I went and I did a trip around the States and visited a lot of them and things after. And one of the things that struck me, one of the things that blew my mind about meeting, you know, people of that kind of wealth and things, was like, they're just ordinary people. And I was like, well, if they can do it, you know, I can have this as well. You know what I mean?
That's it. I think it's quite inspiring as well, because like, you know, sometimes some of the parents that I was living with, maybe the wealth didn't start with them, but the husband's dad, who came over from like Vietnam, or who come over from somewhere around the world, and they just literally started from nothing and they grew this empire. That was inspiring, and I heard lots of stories of like that when I was over there.
Brilliant. Absolutely amazing. So, like, moving on a little bit. So, in terms of, you know, you're then at this kind of cycle of, which I can identify again, of, you know, things going well, and then a self-destruction and things like that. And then there's one thing that I really wanted to ask you about in the book, and this is where I got really emotional, I have to say, was whenever I read the book about your brother. So would you mind, can I ask about your brother, like what happened, and is that okay to talk
Yeah, of
about?
course. Yeah. So a big one of the biggest reasons, or the biggest reason for putting this book out there was for my brother's legacy. My brother, growing up, was my voice. My younger brother, but he didn't have no shame in asking for anything. He'd speak up. If there was a stage, he'd jump on it. And I remember just thinking as a kid, I wish, oh my gosh, how does he do it? I wish I had that confidence. So me and my brother had the same upbringing. And when we moved to Bristol, my brother, like my mum, I love my mum to death, but she's not maternal. So
Get
we
it.
had to really sort of like find us, like she loves us, but she loves us in her way. And sometimes as a child, you need, I don't know, like you're craving this mother love that you want it a certain way because maybe you've watched it from other people, you've seen it in films or whatever it might be. But my brother always like was craving this love, so he got involved with the wrong group of people, and got involved with like petty crimes and stuff like that, and around our area. And then he got put in prison for a little, yeah, petty crimes really, like shoplifting and just stupid things like that. And then when he was 19 years old, he had a son, my nephew Kalen, and his whole life, he just like his whole life, he transformed his whole life. And from 16, he got diagnosed with epilepsy. So he always have like seizures and stuff. So yeah, he transformed his whole life. I just take him to London to live with me, to speak. He'd speak at my events. Wow, things that I thought I'd never in a million years see my brother do, but he did it. And then yeah, just one night he went out with his friends, just after work, had a night out, and I think he got, yeah, drinking alcohol and stuff, and that kind of triggers like seizures and stuff. And the next morning, he had he had a heart attack, and yeah, he passed away. So yeah, so like the whole book is like, I'll be honest, like the start of last year, I didn't want to be here, and no matter how much self-development I knew, I just felt like that like my soul and his soul were connected, and it was like, I just don't want to be here. Like I have nothing else to live for, and I don't get it. Like I was angry with God, but the power was just, I've felt so many signs since my brother's passed, and it's made me look at death in a whole new light. It's made me more spiritual in a sense that I can see past what the eyes can see. So I feel, I speak as if he's here, because he is here, and I feel his presence, and so it's given me great strength because I know that this life is short, and this life is temporary, and it's the impact we make in this world. Yeah, so that's, yeah, the reason for my brother, and I feel open to cry because the feeling of love that I have for him is huge. So yeah,
Brilliant. Thank you so much for sharing that. And
no worries.
yeah, I can
So,
definitely feel the emotion. So thanks for that, for sure. And
okay. Ugh.
I felt that when I read the book. You can that's now I'm getting where the emotion was, because there's emotion in those words. That's why I felt emotional. It's nothing to do with the classical music. So, and I'm sure anybody who picks up the book and reads it, they'll feel that because it's in your words. And
Yeah.
that's so authentic. It's so genuine, which is fantastic. So one of the words you talked about in the book, and it's actually my next thing, and it links to the suicidal thoughts, is gratitude. So
Yeah.
can you speak to gratitude? Let's
Yes, 100%. Gratitude. This is
take your time if you need time. Honestly,
it's good. It's good.
yeah.
Yeah, gratitude. The beautiful thing about gratitude is that I learned is that whatever we focus on, we feel. Our thoughts create emotion, and in this world that we live in, there's good and bad, or that people prescribed as good and bad everywhere. But all I know is that when you focus on the things that you have in your life, such as your family experiences, and just the things that you have that some people would die to have, when you truly connect to gratitude, like it's a part of the morning routine, what I talk about in the book. But when you do that every morning, because I see why negative people are negative, because they wake up, they put the news on, they hear about Corona, they hear about all of the negativity out there in the world,
Mhm.
and they expect to have this positive day. And you're feeding all of that into your mental bank. So the gratitude gets you into a place where you're feeling grateful, which is a higher vibration. And then it's a bit like a hula hoop, you know, when you tap into gratitude and it's a high vibration, you attract everything at that frequency. That's where the saying comes from. We're on the same wavelength. So when you tap into gratitude in the morning, you're looking for the good in the day. So therefore it has that illusion that today was amazing because you are tuned in to the things you're grateful for. So therefore you attract more of it.
Totally.
So
Mm.
yeah, that's my thing on gratitude. And it's impossible to be down and grateful at the same time.
I love that. I wrote that down actually. I had that written down. And so for me, you know, and it was a long journey this to get to this stage. But for me now, I can genuinely say that I'm grateful for everything in my past. You know, whether it's, you know, all sorts of things, even the suicidal thoughts, the squandered money, my upbringing, everything. Um, and to get to that stage for me, like is the place, like it just feels like a place of freedom because I'm so grateful for it all because I wouldn't be here without it all, if that makes sense. And it
Perfect sense.
seems to me that your story, and even including your brother passing away, like possibly the reason you're so emotional is because you're so grateful for the time you had on this earth as well. You know what I mean? Obviously, there's grief, but I can feel the gratitude that you have with that connection, and then obviously, you know, your story, as you know now, it's in a book, is there to inspire other people. I mean,
Mm,
and that for all of us is something to be really grateful for, I feel.
thank you. Yeah, it's like again, like you said, we have to have the depression, we have to have the problems to have insight to finding out who we are. We'll never realize our higher self, our higher power, unless we go through challenges in our life. That's how we grow. So as much as like we can at the time you're like, oh, I wish this is not I wish this is not happening to us.
Yeah,
But looking back, you wouldn't change it because it's a part of the great plan. It's a part of the reason of why we're here. And it's to learn because I know people that haven't been through that much and they're on this conveyor belt of normality. And they're not even living to 10% of their full potential. And that makes me sad. I think sometimes when they'll go, oh, you've had such a tough upbringing. It must have been so tough. Like, and I'm like, don't feel sorry for me, but I feel sorry for you because you're not jumping, you're not taking risks, you're not living, you're not growing, you're just existing. So yeah, I feel like definitely what we've been through, it is I think Tony Robbins said it best where he said, life doesn't happen to you, it happens for you.
yeah, love it. Brilliant. And I think, well, I can definitely reflect on that in terms of my own. Like whenever you go through things like that and you know you've real lows, then whenever it comes to saying doing a project like maybe a book or whatever, or you know anything online or anything that really puts you out there,
Hmm.
you kind of get to the stage where you're like, what's the worst that can happen? Like I've been through all this, like, and I loved your statement in the book about you can't die from people judging you, you know,
Mm.
and so much of what we do because of what will other people think. So I love that bit of it. So how would you advise anyone? Let's say they have an idea for a book, they have an idea even for a public speaking thing or a blog or anything that puts them out in the world, but they're just crippled by the fear of what other people think. Like, what would you say to them? I think there's a lot of
Oh,
people like that.
yes. So what I talk about in the book as well is ego-based fear, and that's the fear of fitting, of not fitting in, being ridiculed, being judged. And fear is a good thing in the sense that it keeps us alive. But I believe that we're not living in the caveman days anymore. So we don't need to have, please accept me, please let me be a part of your community. You can make this as an individual in the world that we live in right now. Like danger, like don't just listen to this and be like, look, yeah, I watched the interview and then like, go in front of a lion's den and be like, oh, I'm fearless. No, the lion's going to kill you. So like, that's good. Don't jump into a cage. That is there for you to protect you. But the ego-based fear is the false evidence appearing real. That's what it stands for, in the sense that the brain believes that your life is in a life or death situation. It thinks it's real. So so the mind, you're having that experience of that your life is like on the borderline of you ending your life or whatever. So things like public speaking or speaking on camera or doing a blog or getting a story out there, we have to check in and we have to recondition, reprogram, and it's that word that kind of like sometimes I sort of differentiate the difference between what real danger is and what ego-based fear is. And then once you do that, your brain understands it, says, you know what? It kind of says what you like, kind of like what you just said before, where what's the worst that I can go through? Like, if I've been through all of this stuff, like someone's judged, like I've gone through everything I've gone through, someone's judgment, someone like that, you look at it for what it is and you're like, what the hell? It's nothing. So what I would say to people is this: no one gets out alive. So don't play safe in a world where no one gets out alive. So put it out there. But the why, I think for me, if I didn't have a why, I wouldn't have shared my story. My why was that I'm not the only one going through what I'm going through. I'm not the, if I can impact someone's life, if I can impact a child's life, their thinking to live a better life, that feeling that I get from doing that is purpose. So anyone who's watching this right now, don't think because you'll think of all of the what ifs. Speak, like, come from a place of intuition in your heart and just take action and realize why you're doing it. And I think the bigger your why, the smaller the fear. And then once you jump past these fears, you realize that it's not real.
Yeah, brilliant. I love that. That's fantastic. And I love your philosophy. And I've seen it on your social media a few times. Okay, I wake up and the first thing I think, who am I going to help today? I think that's a brilliant philosophy. And that's a big part of your why, isn't it?
It is. It's like if I wasn't a speaker, if I wasn't doing what I'm doing now, I dread to think. I don't think I'd be here. Like this is my purpose. Like I believe once you can speak, it's your duty to share that knowledge that you've gained and to pass it on and to influence people in a positive way. Because if I die now, I know that I'm happy. Like I'm in a place. I'm in a place where, like, when you use all of the toothpaste and you're rolling it up and you're getting every inch out, that's my philosophy every day. You don't know if it's your last day. You don't know if it's your last day. Why? That's crazy when people like make plans for next week and like, we don't even know if we're going to make it through today. As real as it is, we don't know if we're going to make it through today. So if we have that, if we value that, we start to value our time more, and then we start to put more effort in, because I think that's what got me to get the book out there faster, was that I don't know how long I got left yet. I want to get all of my treasure, all of my knowledge out there, and then depart in whenever my divine timing for me to leave is to leave. I just can't. I feel guilty, selfish to not just bring this out there to the world.
I love it. I love that. And somebody actually told me that once. Now I'm going to be really honest with you. I find this very inspirational because I'm still very much working on getting getting to the stage where I'll share my story. I do it one-to-one and things, and I know I can help people that way. But what you just said is what somebody said to me a few years ago. They said, now think about it. To actually hold on to your story and to hold on to things you've overcome is selfish to the world, like, isn't it? Because you're not.
It is. It's almost like you found a shortcut to get somewhere, and you're seeing people take the long way around and get lost. And if only you just shared the map, they would then know how to get where they need to be. But it's again, Rich. Like, it's these questions. Sometimes people say, "I'll do it tomorrow. I'll do it next year." It's like when it comes to story or getting out there, it's just a sense of do it, and then don't even think, but do it. But as long as that intention is pure and you're doing it to help the greater cause, then it's justified. Because sometimes when I shared my story, I was like, "Crap, I'm gonna put my mum under the bus. People are gonna say this and say that." But I said to my family, like, over time, you're gonna understand why I had to share it. And again, they all came back around. My mum spoke at my event. or my family understand why I do what I do. So it's just one of those things. It's like you take your power back and you take away all of the ammunition from people's judgment when you share your story.
And can I ask about your mother? You're obviously in relationship with your mother
Yeah.
now,
Mhm.
and she just went on to thrive after coming
Yeah,
out.
so
Yeah,
yeah, so my mum hasn't touched drugs for like 17, 18 years.
wow,
She's very spiritual as well. Like she's still like, so our relationship, like I love mom to death, but we are very still different people. And it's funny, like I'll be speaking to mom about sort of certain things that I do, and then about a year later, she'll be like, I've watched this video on YouTube, and he said, um, we are our habits, or just something like that. And I'm like, Mum, I told you that a year ago. So yeah, our
yeah,
relationship
totally
is, yeah, like we're almost like brother and sister kind of relationship. That's the kind of relationship that we have. But my mum is amazing, incredible. She did amazing things. Bless her.
brilliant. So that's a perfect. You've just brought us on to the next topic, which is habits.
Yes.
Like for me, this is a big topic because I talked about alcohol. My habits around alcohol were horrendous,
Yep.
like really, really bad. And well, I'm grateful to say, like I haven't taken a drink now for nearly 2 years. So it'll be
Amazing.
2 years in a few weeks, which I'm really, really proud of.
It's
But I
incredible.
think for a lot of people who are struggling to get success or whatever it is, they don't realize how massive the small habits are, having the impact they're having on their life. Isn't that, would I be true in saying that?
100%. And like you said before about not taking drugs because you wanted to heal the wound. A lot of us are building foundation. We're building houses on sand.
Yeah.
And I feel like our habits, we find ways that, and maybe as a kid or subconsciously, to cover, to band-aid over our problems. And that's where the habits, that when we create these bad habits in the process, and addictions and all of these things that we go to that give you temporarily like sort of like relief. So it is like looking back, having self-awareness and analyzing these habits that we have, and realizing that a habit is created through repetition of information that you've heard, things that you've done, seen over a period of time. So then it's almost like getting to know yourself, writing all of this down, writing why do I go down to the cupboard and get food at this time of night? Why am I doing that? Is it because I'm hungry, or what is it an emotional thing? How can I change that? So then looking at these bad habits and actually thinking, how can I replace it with a good habit? So therefore, um, the habit of, like, when my brother passed, I just began eating, and I put on weight up to 16 stone. And I was like, that was emotional. I was doing it for an emotional reason, for eating. But when I I felt that emotion to just giving back and doing videos and helping people. And so then became good, in the sense that I was contributing for a greater cause, and it was growing me as a person. So our habits, we're habitual creatures. So 99.0% of the time, we are running on autopilot via our habits. So we are our habits. So it's just realizing what habits we have
Mm.
and removing the ones that we don't want, which is uncomfortable because the brain hates change. The brain has it's organized where everything is. So when you go in there and start messing things up, the brain hates that. Aha, you feel uncomfortable, lost, anxious, or whatever you might feel. But then that's crucial. You need to change it around, so that therefore you have the habits. And it takes 21 days to create a new habit that you do consistently, not just once a week or like, it's repetition
Mhm.
over and over and over again. It's like, do you know the reason why I have post-it notes around my house with affirmations is that even when I'm not reading it, my eyes are seeing it. Our environment is conditioning our subconscious. So therefore, it's putting these new habits that we want on eye view, going over them through reading, listening to audios, and doing as well. Yeah, so habits are
Brilliant.
everything. I'm just so passionate about it because habits do run your life.
Brilliant. We'll talk a bit more about that in a second. So I want to share with you something. You've just jogged my memory. I was in a church once. This is a couple of years ago, and an evangelical kind of non-denominational kind of church that I was at one day just with some friends. And I used to go to Christian churches, and I still do on occasion. I quite enjoy them. But anyway, the pastor was on the stage, and he said something really controversial that the congregation did not like this particular day. So he said, we're all really quick to judge these addicts, these addicts that are lying in the street, with heroin addiction or whatever it may be. He said, wait till I tell you something. Every single one of us in this room is an addict. We're all addicted to something. And of course, there was a gasp from the crowd. Oh, I'm not an addict. And he was like, I want you to just think about your eating habits, think about your shopping habits, think about your phone habits, think about your internet habits, TV habits. He listed all these things. And then everyone, you could see everyone sort of going, shit, he's right.
Yeah.
He's right. We all are pretty much addicted to something for some reason. And I suppose his message was exactly what you said. That's why you reminded me was, we got to kind of get to sort of the root cause of being aware of it and thinking, why am I doing that? So I think one of the things, this is obviously leading us on perfectly. So for everybody watching, got the book, and I was so blessed to get a signed copy, which is brilliant. Thank you very much for that, Warren.
No
And
worries.
in it, you said to Richards, and then you said, you got this. So I love, that's your motto, isn't it? Am I right in saying that?
Yes,
And
yeah.
you've set up a kind of a project around that. Can you tell us about it?
Yes, so I created the Godless Movement, and the Godless Movement is just purely based on that mantra, that affirmation that I believe when you say with conviction that I got this, your brain, your mind will focus on the solution to find the solution to whatever problem or whatever challenge that you've got in your life. So I thought about creating a platform, a bit like Netflix, but for self-development and self-help, and to bring on other coaches to help you with mind, body, and soul. Because I think when we are looking after our mind, body, and soul, that's when we can enter happiness and peace and love, and we can have that balance in our life. So yeah, so this platform, it started off in lockdown, and it's growing. Just about to get launched a website as well, and yeah, it's a platform where people can just tune in, be a member, and then they can get, if they want to learn how to learn how to get fit, or they want to learn about business, or they want to learn about their mental health and habits, or whatever it might be, there's going to be a video and a directory video that they can watch and get all of the information that they need.
Brilliant. Sounds fantastic. And what will the domain be for that? I know it's in the book.
Yeah, so it's www.godlessmovement.com.
Brilliant. And is the website up already, or is it that's coming soon?
It's going to be up by the end of this week. So it was up originally, but I've had to change the content around a bit as well. So just to make it kind of, I think it's been a working project since up until last week. So we're looking to go live at the end of this week.
Fantastic. And something you just mentioned there actually is one of the things I've written down as well, that I am a soul having a human experience.
Yes.
Wow. So tell us a bit about that.
Yeah, I heard that from Wayne Dyer, and Wayne Dyer was just, when I first heard it, it was like, wow, because a lot of us judge ourselves, our self-worth, on who we see in the mirror. And as deep as it is, we are not who we see in the mirror. We are the observer. And we are not our habits. We are not our beliefs. We are more than that. Because before we learned language, how do we speak to ourselves then? Who were we then? And it's about going back to that pureness, that power inside of us before society put their hands on us and told us who we are, and we've been conditioned. So we are a soul having a human experience. That then takes away the bars, the limitations, and everything that man can't do. And therefore, when we understand that we are souls, we can create the so-called impossible. We can do things that we thought we could never do. We are love. We are an abundance of energy, that we don't get tired. This is all human. This is our human side. But deeper than that is that we are the soul having a human experience. So regardless of your age, sometimes people say you get wiser as you get older. Like, no one knows how old your soul is. Your earth years, yeah, but your soul, like, we don't know how old our soul is. And that's the beauty of it. So when we know that we are a soul having a human experience, we can go beyond the so-called pains of what the human can't go through, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. Amazing. I love it. I love it because, yeah, very often we look in the mirror and we judge ourselves based on appearance and physicality and that sort of thing. So I want to ask you a very selfish question. This is for myself, but I trust that somebody watching may have a similar question.
Yeah.
So I've quite a lot of physical. As I mentioned, I was born extremely sensitive, and as I said, I'm grateful for it now because it's shaped who I am.
Yeah.
You know, the day I was born, I had very severe eczema. I've had allergies all my life to all sorts of things. Um, what would you say to somebody who has maybe even more extreme pain than that, like physical pain, say, like back pain, or like, what's your thoughts on being able to change, that with our minds and with our attitudes and behaviors and things?
First of all, I would say is why do we want to impress people? What need are we trying to hit? What reach? Like I remember in school I got bullied because I had a gap in my teeth, and I remember thinking like when I get old enough I'm going to close this gap up. And it's beautiful because when I start to work on myself, it's in a relationship. It's not looking on the outside and seeking validation or am I good enough? Like me. When I stopped doing all of that on a subconscious level and I start to fill my own cup up and build my relationship, it's almost like if you look for what you don't like, you'll find it. If you look for what you like, you'll find it. So I learned that I am so much more. You are so much more than who you are on the outside. Your significance isn't from how you look, but in society, they've made that a thing. Insta models, how you should be, so we compare and have all of these expectations of who we should be. It's like in some countries, like being obese for example isn't sometimes seen as a great thing, could be a great thing in the public eye as attraction or whatever in the UK, in the Western world, but then you go somewhere else in the world and actually that is attractive and they are, that's a sign of beauty. So it's just meaning. Everything in this world has meaning that's been put on by man. So it's about us stepping back and going, actually, I'm not going to follow these rules of society. I'm going to follow my own rules, my own morals and values. I'm going to raise and pour into my cup. And then I'm going to get my self-worth, not in anything else, but into my beauty of my soul. So again, it's just what you think is good is an illusion that's been created by society. It's sales, isn't it? They sold us an image of what we should look like and how we should be. And I think when you build that relationship with yourself, and it's a continuous thing. It's not something that you just love yourself and that's it. You continuously work on loving yourself. And the more you do that, I believe you get to a place where you don't give a flying monkeys or what other people think about you. Like attention's good. Like I don't say I don't want attention. I like attention, but I don't need it. And I don't need people to approve of me. I know. So I think again, it's owning that power. So whatever, if there's eczema, like I remember again, I had acne growing up, and then that like I would stay indoors for so long because I was scared of. But I knew I wanted people to approve me. I wanted people to like me. It wasn't about me because I don't see my face on a day-to-day basis. It's about how others see me.
Totally love it. And do you know, I've noticed something now recently, and it took me the best part of 40 years to break this habit. And my habit was, and I just kind of broke my habit a little bit there before because obviously I told you about it. But
Yeah.
one of my things was I always told everybody, like any relationship I get into, within like an hour, oh, I've got severe, I've had severe eczema all my life, and I'm really sensitive to this, and I've allergies to this. And I've noticed that now that I've stopped that, I've stopped focusing on it as much, my symptoms have actually definitely got better. You know, so well, like what we focus on, it's like it's bizarre, isn't it? Well, it's not bizarre at all, but it takes us years to learn those sort of things, doesn't it? Sometimes.
That's it. I believe that this information that I think, Richard, like we are tapping in self-help. It should be taught in schools. But then if you look at it, if everyone knew this knowledge, they wouldn't follow, they wouldn't conform. So it's just the information is out there, and we just need to learn by reading books, audios, growing and being a student forever. The more we are a student, the more we can learn. And the information, the cure for all of our problems are out there. We just need to take the courage to go on that journey and just learn, because that's it. That's what it's about. I think what you wanted what you wanted 5 years ago is maybe what you don't want now. So we're always changing.
Brilliant. I love that. I think that's a perfect place to wrap up, because you're talking about learning, you're talking about personal development, and there's no better place to go. If anyone's interested on this, the book's available on Amazon, isn't that right, Warren?
Yeah, you can get it from Amazon, or they contact me direct. They can get a signed version as well. But I would say though, you know, don't get the book if you're not going to take action. I think I want to put that out there, is that it's a commitment. As soon as you get the book, that's the commitment. It's happened. You're going to be on this journey. So I want to, because I don't want it to collect dust. I want you to get into it, read the book from front to back, go back to it, grow from it, and that's when the magic happens. So just before you even click to buy, just in your mind, I'm ready. Let's do this. I got this. Like I said before, I got this. Get the book, and then the magic starts happening.
Brilliant, Warren. That is a perfect place to wrap up. That is so motivational and inspirational. And I'm really looking forward to following your journey more. And I've no doubt that we'll be connecting in person, whether that's at one of your events or somewhere whenever all this stuff is finished. So thank you so much for your time. And I've no doubt this has inspired many people. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Richard. Thank you. Thank you for